Thank you very much to the Prime Minister. May I now call upon the first speaker to oppose the motion from the Cambridge team, Mr. Michael Dunn.
Mr. Speaker, Your Excellency, distinguished members of the panel, my lords, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is a veritable pleasure to be here this evening. Thank you so much for having us. So I'm going to begin with a critique of the proposition's rather unambitious definition of the motion. The motion says, this House believes that Germany should let Europe die. And I think that they have given an unrealistically narrow definition of the word should. The word should surely brings with it a certain external moral currency. And to demonstrate this, I'll give you a little thought experiment. Suppose you're walking behind me in the street and I drop £5 or €5 or $5, depending upon your particular persuasion. We would all, I think, agree that you should give that back to me. It's almost certainly not in your self-interest to do so. No one's going to catch you. You'll be $5 the richer. But we all agree that you should give it back because the word should brings with it certain moral obligations to other people. So we, in opposition, are going to be slightly more ambitious. We're going to show you that the proposition's plan, no thank you, is not only terrible for Germany, but catastrophic for everyone else. And we think, ladies and gentlemen, that that is significant. And we're going to prove that to you via a consideration of three main themes. First, we're going to consider the economic repercussions of this motion. Second, the political consequences. And finally, the catastrophic loss of scientific and cultural capital that will result from a German-instigated death of Europe. But before I give you a bird's-eye view of our argumentation today, I would just like to turn to what the previous speaker told you. So he painted this picture of Germany as a victim. He gave us the idea of hard-working Germans slaving away to fund indolent scroungers in the rest of Europe. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a perception that we on the opposition resent. Why? Because it's wrong. Germany funds the rest of Europe, and I'll take you in a second, not only because it is the compassionate thing to do, and it is, ladies and gentlemen, but also because it is in Germany's interests so to do. I'll give you two reasons before I take the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
England has not decided to save Europe. Why exactly is that so?
Because, to put it quite simply, 61% of Britain's trade is not with Europe. Britain's banks do not hold such a large supply of individual, corporate, and sovereign debt from peripheral European countries. Britain's interests are not at stake to such a large degree. But as it happens, when Britain's interests are at stake, Britain does contribute, like, for example, to the Irish bailout, which was largely British funded. Okay, so I've already hinted at two main reasons, okay, why it is in Germany's interest to do this, and Jiawei will expand on these. First, because of trade. A large proportion of Germany's trade, 61% indeed, which in turn constitutes 25% of its GDP, no thank you, is with the rest of Europe. So ensuring the economic stability of the rest of Europe is very much in Germany's interests. Furthermore, a large proportion of the debt that Germany is currently helping to finance with loans, note loans, not gifts, to other European countries, is held by Germans. That means that if this debt is defaulted on, real German depositors will lose real deposits, which is why it is very much in the interest of the German state to preserve the economic health and the credibility of these regions. So, I'm now going to give you something of an argumentative amuse-bouche, okay? Jiawei is going to open up our case with an examination of the economic consequences of the government's plan. He's going to explain how the European Union sustains four economic freedoms: the freedom of capital, the absence of capital controls and foreign exchange charges, which leads to increased investment, gone under the government plan; freedom of movement, which leads to flexibility in labour markets, leading to increased employment, gone; freedom of production, which leads to the ability to spread supply chains to areas of comparative advantage, leading to increased productivity. Gone. And of course, freedom of purchase, the way in which the euro facilitates mutually beneficial exchange between exporters and importers, leading to increased economic growth all round. Gone. But furthermore, in addition to eliminating and undermining these freedoms, the proposition's plan would lead to a very special type of financial nightmare. We would see absolute chaos in the financial markets in three key ways. First, the imposition of capital controls, the pegging of currencies, and the rise of a black market in currency exchange, leading to economic and financial mayhem the world over. Second, to massive defaults on the debt of peripheral Eurozone countries, which would harm everyone that holds them in the world, especially the Germans. And finally, the loss of 61% of German exports because of economic collapse in the rest of Europe. We think that's bad. Do you agree?
If Germany bankrupts themselves trying to save Europe, won't all this trade go away?
So, to put it quite simply, we don't think that Germany needs to bankrupt itself to save Europe. We think limited mutualization of bonds and European banking integration will help to bring the current crisis to an end. Underlying economic growth in Europe, remember, is strong. In the graph we were shown earlier in the video, note there was a period of considerable growth in the middle, which shows that when the markets are satisfied with the Germans are willing to do that, or that Europe as a whole is willing to do its bit to maintain stability of the euro, okay, generally speaking, growth follows. This is why, after Mario Draghi announced he was prepared to do whatever it takes to save the euro, the governor of the European Central Bank, there was considerable growth in Europe. So we don't think the problems are as deep as you think. We don't think they're going to get rid of all of Germany's considerable capital reserves. So, Peter is then going to talk about the political repercussions of this motion. He's going to explain to you how Europe's role as a mediator will be undermined, how extremist political parties will rise up in peripheral Eurozone countries, and how Europe's standing in the world will be reduced. Tim is then going to talk about the loss of scientific and cultural capital, how all of our lives will be that much less richer under their plan. Ladies and gentlemen, because it is terrible economically, it is terrible politically, and it is terrible in all those other things that enrich our lives, we are very, very proud to stand in opposition to this motion today. Thank you very much.